goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Yeah! Why don't you do that? Hello, welcome to the program. The program being Lynn Cullen Live. It's Tuesday, the 17th of November. And my sister Susan is sitting in Chicago, Illinois. Hi, Suze.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
I'm free for the first time in weeks because number one grandson, as in only grandson, was pink-eyed out for several days.
Oh, and you've been babysitting.
Which meant that I was elected to go in without a hazmat suit.
What do you mean without a Oh, because, it's so contagious.
It's very contagious.
I got it a few years ago. I forget what. Yeah, it's awful. Not to mention that you look like crap, and then people don't want to be anywhere near you. Yeah, it's not pleasant.
No.
Well, that's what. God, it's like daycare centers are like you just. Can you imagine the bacterial and viral sort of petri dishes?
Well, they do their best. I mean, that's why he was home,
that's where he got it. Don't you think?
If they think that you're sending in a sick kid, they just call you and tell you to, they sort of pick him up by the back of his shirt and hand him back to you.
But that's where I assume that's probably where he gets all the stuff he gets.
Well, maybe no one else there has it, so he might have been just at a playground and picked it up.
Okay.
Because I was sitting there trying to figure out, what can I do with him? It's a beautiful day. We'll go to the playground. And I'm going, no, we can't do that.
Aw, he's persona non grata. He's like
it was
Typhoid
okay. We
Mary.
went and watched heavy machinery out in the street.
Oh, well, that's
even
cool.
Better.
Yeah, that's cool. So, the thing about having a kid is true. You learn things you never knew, like, all the names of dinosaurs. And a front loader from a dump truck. I never knew what any of those vehicles were, but then with a kid, you do. You learn.
Right. Well, we were watching this great big sort of drill pounder rip up the street and then push the stuff around.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
All right. So, Suze, we haven't spoken, have we, since Paris?
No.
Okay. Well, what I want to
I sort of crawl under my bed and don't talk to anybody when these things happen.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, yesterday I was talking, I think, about how it just drives me crazy how people react with such, terror, how terror works. And the tactic of terror is so, it's just, you would think that we'd get better at reacting exactly as the terrorists want us to. Why, all these Republicans now making people terrified of anyone from Syria, right? We cannot have anybody from Syria, and every single. Did you hear what Chris Christie said?
What? No refugees because they're all terrorists?
Right. Now they're all terrorists, and he went so far as to say he would not even allow a 5-year-old Syrian orphan into the United States.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I'm not kidding. So, you've got every president. Oh, and then Jeb Bush says, well, the only Syrians we should take are Christian Syrians.
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense to me because we can vet that and make sure that
I mean, this is America. So now the Republicans would have you believe there should be a religious test, and if you even come from a country where one terrorist has come from. By the way, terrorists have come from the United States, too, so I guess all of us Americans are then suspect. I mean, what kind of insanity, some kind of... I hate it. I just hate it. As I said, we got to change the Star-Spangled Banner because Home of the Brave and, Home of the Brave is not representative of this country anymore. It's home of the easily cowed and terrified. Sick of it.
And mean and nasty.
Mean and nasty.
When I've been sort of reading all of the stuff coming out of the University of Missouri also in the last week.
Yeah.
And I swear that anybody that wants to see whether the kids who are complaining about being treated badly in Columbia, just in case you want to see if it's true, just read the comment section.
From the papers or
from
whatever?
The newspaper.
Yeah, and see the races.
I mean, it is so appalling. You're going, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
These
are our fellow Americans
down in Columbia. You betcha there is. It's
These are our fellow Americans, and the Americans who would be presidents. And they're saying this will change. The Republicans love nothing more than this because they love to scare people, and then they love to build up the military. And this is exactly the kind of thing that plays into their hands. And they, of course, by doing all this, play into the hands of the terrorists. Because if we start, branding all Muslims or all Syrians as terrorists, well, we're working with ISIS recruiting against the evil West. I mean, what is with these friggin' fools? Drives me nuts.
Well, it's the same mindset as zero tolerance.
Exactly. It's the same.
We don't want to have to actually think about anything.
Right.
So it's much easier not to have subsets of good people and bad people.
Right.
We'll just have one big set, all people.
Yeah. And, unless they look like us, sound like us, worship like us, blah, 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 we're not letting them in, and we're scared of them, and we perceive them as a threat. Now, of course, this is playing out all across Europe as well. So I was also talking yesterday about my fear is of, this right-wing shift in Europe, which you will absolutely see.
Well, what you're already seeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You've been seeing it for a couple of years.
Absolutely. So here we go. Fasten your seatbelts. If there's one thing, this is why terrorism works. They play on the weakest of human emotion. Fear. And then the politicians do the rest. They take it and run with it. So if you're a reasonable person who's really trying to deal with what is an extraordinarily complex issue, and an issue of national security, 'tis true. I mean, global security. So true that we might end up seeing, because of this, an alliance between Russia, the United States, and Iran trying to fight ISIS. ISIS has made allies of enemies because we all want them crushed. I don't know. Can't take much more of the stupidity and the fear-mongering. I just can't. I can't. Don't know if you saw, there's a thing on Twitter and probably Facebook and YouTube and all over the place of a little child in Paris being interviewed. Have you seen that?
No.
It is the sweetest thing you've ever... I mean, well, it's a little boy, maybe about 3. His father's holding him. And a reporter, and they're at one of these places where they're putting flowers and lighting candles.
Right.
And a reporter comes up and actually asks the little boy a question. And that little child and that father, because the child is saying there are really mean people, bad people in the world. And he was clearly terrified, this little boy. And he even said something like, we have to change our house, meaning, and his father said, no. He says, we don't have to move. We're, okay, but the kid's having none of it. He's saying, no, they're mean, they're bad people. And I can't remember exactly how it's said. The father is saying there's bad people everywhere. The kid's still thinking they got guns. And the father says, we have flowers. And the kid looks at him like he's nuts. We have flowers? And the father says, yes. And flowers, the father, I'm thinking, this is not a good, the father, I'm thinking, oi, I don't know. The father says, we have flowers, and the kid wants to know if the flowers will protect us. Right? And
right.
The father says, yes. The flowers are our protection. And the kid looks very skeptical. And he turns, he's being held, and he turns to look at this sea of, I'm sure, flowers and stuff. And he turns back to his father. He said, and candles? Meaning, will those candles help?
Too?
Yeah.
Right.
And the father said, yes, and the candles too. And then the kid decides, I guess, to buy it, right? It's so sweet. It's so, and
well, I mean, the daddy could have taken it one point further and said each one of those flowers and candles is put there by a good person.
Yeah.
And there
I
are
think
more
the father
good
at one time
people
does
than there
say
are
something
bad
about
people.
good people. The father was wonderful.
The father was trying to help his kid. What do you do in these situations? It's like the children of New York City after 9/11. Fundamentally, shaken
right.
because you can't take away knowledge that no, you aren't safe.
Yeah. So it worked though, you
have to rebuild it.
Yeah, the reporter said eventually to the little boy, "Do you feel better now?" And he said, "What? Yeah." He decided that the flowers and candles could maybe get the bad guy somehow.
Well, it's right that's certainly right to talk about it. But I think you have to. I think it's appropriate to acknowledge that the child's fears are real
Right.
and appropriate.
Right.
But to say the grown-ups are going to protect him and he's going to be fine. And to, I don't. It doesn't help to pretend like there's some magic out there that's going to make the kid okay.
No.
It might be sweet, but
I remember Mr. Rogers saying that the thing you just tell the kid, look for the helpers, and if you point out the help, look at all these people. Look at there are helpers. There are people all over that are here to help. Just take the
well, look at all the people that survived because total strangers were helping them survive.
Well,
there's all these stories out today of people desperately looking for the people that saved them because they have no idea who they were. There's on the Today Show this morning the picture of the pregnant woman dangling off the side of the theater building.
yeah,
I think
I didn't realize she was pregnant.
Yeah.
How did she ever get?
She wants to know who it was that saved her.
How did I've seen her hanging? Did she jump?
I don't know what happened to her.
Well, then who saved? She was
someone
3.
either pulled her up or caught her from the bottom. I don't know.
Well, she didn't want to go back in.
I think someone pulled her up, and she's looking for the person.
But she didn't want to go back into that place. She was trying to get out of it. She was hanging from a third-story window of the auditorium.
The guy that was in there that talked about how they escaped out windows to roofs said that what they did is they helped each other, and that he said that, and we were. He was sort of amazed himself. He said we were very polite. The women went first. We got women out of there first, and then we just helped. It was not an easy climb, and we helped people do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Brooke writes, Ted Cruz said yesterday that only Syrian Christians would be welcome. And Jeb has said the same. You got to figure about, we can name the Republicans that would have said something like that or would agree with it. And Cruz actually said there should be a test. Oh, my God, in a country born of religious freedom, how could we possibly...
What if there's a stray Jew in there? Can they come in?
No Jews. No Jews. No Sikhs.
And are we lumping all the different, all Muslims are the...
All Muslims then are bad, and all Christians are victims. And,
okay.
I'm
glad I understand this now.
The people pouring out of Syria are Syrians. They are comprised of Muslims, of Christians, of the Jews long ago left Syria.
And they're running for their lives.
They're running for their lives.
Which might suggest to you that they aren't the bad guys.
Susan, our own brother, was telling me that he feels, told me this like a week or so ago, that he feels that there probably are tons of ISIS people in these refugees.
Of course there are. I think you'd be naive to think that there are.
Right. It's a perfect opportunity to get...
of course.
Right.
What sort of idiots would they be if they didn't hide in the crowd?
Right, if they didn't take advantage of it.
But and of that we have to be aware. But is our principle that we don't save anybody because there's a bad apple?
Yeah. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. That's what we do.
Let's just let them wash up on the shores, guys. Remember how upset you were about that little toddler washing up on the shores?
Oh, we're not. That was a terrorist. That was a terrorist to be. Brooke also writes, Governor Wolf and Mayor Peduto both spoke out yesterday saying that they would continue to welcome Syrian refugees. And it did not take long for the haters to start hating. He's looking. The comments on the Post-Gazette Facebook page showed our region's true colors. Well, I'll say this, Brooke. The people who seemingly write this, would you agree, Susan? The haters disproportionately post on these comment sites. Good people are doing their...
Oh, and good people disappeared. Good people are so sickened by the whole thing that they can't. And if you do, every once in a while I'll post something, like what I said. Anybody wants to, wonder whether those kids are telling the truth, read the comments.
Yeah.
And I posted that, and let me tell you, I'm glad that I live in a different state.
Yeah, they're that...
They just come after you, and and I rarely post anything in response, and which is always noted. And until the very end, when I say, you guys say it all. You prove my point.
There you do.
Problem.
Yeah. They're so scared. I mean, they don't realize that by their expressing their hate and fear, they're showing themselves to be such wimps, such weak-kneed creeps.
Well, and like the kid that they arrested for making the death threats about students, which basically shut down the campus.
Oh yeah, in Missouri, yeah.
And and he just admits that he was sitting in his dorm room, writing these terrible things. My guess is he wasn't doing he wasn't going to do anything.
No, just shooting off their mouths. Right.
Just shooting off his mouth, and I hope they put that kid away for 10 years. I mean, what he did was, issue terrorist threats. There's no doubt about it. He did it. He admitted it. He admitted the language that he used was from another mass killer. He did the whole thing. He just, casually admits it.
Jeez, I don't know. Let's stop talking about this. I have a little rant about a word I hate.
Okay.
I heard it the other day again, and it made me crazy. Here is the word.
Moist?
No. I never even thought of moist. But there is something sort of sickening about that word, isn't there? Moist.
Okay, what's yours?
All right. My word, I'm not coming at it from the way it sounds. I'm coming at it from the stupidity of this word that has all of a sudden popped up. It is pre-planning.
Pre-planning?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay, yes, I understand the redundant thing, but what the hell is pre-planning?
It's planning.
You either plan?
No, it's planning.
Pre-planning is, I think I'll plan.
Yeah. So I hear this all.
The thought to plan?
I hear it all the time on television. I hear it on the news. This was a pre-planned attack. I'm saying, would you know what plan means? It doesn't need pre in front of it. What do you mean pre-planned?
It means, they're trying to say somebody didn't accidentally blow himself up in a suicide attack?
I don't know what the fuck they
Or that
think
three
they're
different
saying.
people in three different locations didn't accidentally coincide, that it was planned in advance.
No, it wasn't just planned. It was pre-planned.
Well, even saying it was planned in advance, which you hear all the time, makes no sense.
No sense at all,
because
planned in
why
advance.
Why would you plan after the fact?
Right. And here's another one now that I think about it. And with it, a free gift.
I know. Well, your brother would tell you that there ain't no such
thing. No, even a gift by its very nature obligates you. But
well, let me tell you a perfect example of that. You know those little cardboard boxes that arrived with your New York Times?
That's the next thing I want to talk to you about that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, our 93-year-old mother got that.
Here's for people who don't know that people who get the Sunday New York Times were given with the Times. It came with the newspaper, a cardboard box with
two lenses in it. Basically, a slightly more sophisticated set of 3D goggles.
Yeah. And what you do is you stick your cell phone inside this box, and you've downloaded an app onto it, and guys, what happens is it starts playing, and you're sitting there, and you are in
a real virtual reality.
You are transported. I did it yesterday for the first time.
Right, and you literally can. You hold this thing up.
You can't believe it.
What I was looking at was a room full of airplanes, and you You could look up at the ceiling and see the rafters in the hangar. You could look to
down,
your right and see a series
here.
of airplanes over there.
You can turn around. You're in the middle
You turn your body around and you see different things. So it was a virtual reality little miniature box. So that's what we're talking about. But Mother gets this thing, and she doesn't want it. She's never going to use it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know what to do with it.
You mean it makes her anxious?
It makes her anxious. Should I throw it away?
Oh, you mean she got this?
Who can I give it to? Give it to Arlie. And I said, no, Arlie can have mine. I'm not going to bring this thing to Arlie.
What, you mean, wait a minute, Susan. So she was given a free gift
which was not free because it caused her great anxiety.
What nonsense! Well, did you tell her just toss it in the wastebasket?
I finally took it out of her fingers and threw it away for her. I said, here's what you do with stuff you don't want. And it's recyclable. So I opened up her recycling and I threw it in there. And then when I told her a couple of days later that I'd actually done it and it was sort of cool, she goes, oh, I need to go get it out of the recycling. It's still in there. And I said, Mother, are you going to use it? And she said, no. I said, leave it.
Okay, so let me tell you. That box has been sitting in my living room. And I keep looking and thinking, what the hell could that be? So finally yesterday, and I couldn't have done it by myself. I know I couldn't. So I said, Sam, I got my kid. And he did it for the first time. He put it together, downloaded the app, stuck it in, and I watched as he put this thing up against his face. And this is a millennial. This is a guy who...
And he was having fun.
Here's what I heard.
Going up and down. And
oh, my God. Oh, my God. He was going nuts. So I said, gimme. So I put it on, and I am so blown away by it. I was on a street in New York, and he's saying, look down. I said, oh, my God, look up. I'm looking up. And he was standing right over here, right to my left. And at one, he said, turn left. And I turned expecting to see him because that's where I am. I mean, he was in my... And there was a guy standing there, but it wasn't Sam. And I realized, oh, no, you're not in... You're in two realities right now. You're in one here, and
then this virtual one, which
I found really disorienting. Then some guy started talking. I was in a room, a beautiful apartment with beautiful paintings all over. And I'm looking at some guy starts talking. I think, who's talking? I turn totally around, and he's behind me, and he's talking to me about something. And I start looking around the room, and then a wave of unbelievable nausea.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with these devices. They do make you dizzy. Although
Susan, I was queasy for the next 4 hours. It was as bad as if I got on a ride at an amusement park. And here's the funny thing. Today's New York Times, in the science section, headline.
Talks about that.
Headline, Setting Illness in Digital Motion. And it's all about how people, they say as many as 50 to 80% of people get motions. It's called digital motion sickness. And it's because, and I said, I think my brain couldn't
do it.
My brain was saying, wait a minute, when you turned here, your son was supposed to be, but he wasn't. And then I turned around, and my brain wasn't able to process it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got sick.
Yeah, I didn't look that long. So maybe that, but that has been, these devices have been around for a while now, although not as niftily done in a 2x4 by, rectangular little box with two little things. I mean, it really was an ingenious little thing.
It's ingenious. I want everybody...
But they've had these virtual reality things for several years, and that's always been the issue. The reason that they don't do well is because they make people motion sick.
Okay, so here's what it says. It's a fundamental problem that is being kind of swept under the carpet in the tech industry. Because it's a natural response. The nausea is a natural response to an unnatural environment. You've been transported into another place, and you do feel like you are there. So the way the New York Times is using it, how brilliant is this? This is the way I guess media will come.
So what happens is it sort of just introduces a vertigo response.
But how great it is that what they did they put this thing out along with 3 bits in which you go into the same environment as some refugee children.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be sitting in your living room like I was, and yet your brain and it seems like your body are in a hellhole refugee camp in South Sudan. The noise is there. The people are all around you. And what an amazing way to do documentaries.
Uh-huh.
And all I can think of is eventually when we go to movies, we're going to essentially be in them. I mean, we're going to be, this is not 3D. This is way beyond 3D. You got to experience this. It was mind-blowing to me. But here's what they say, Susan, in terms of the digital motion sickness. In traditional motion sickness, like you're on a boat and you get what happens is your body is feeling movement and your inner ear is also engaged, but you don't see what is causing the move. Let's say you're just sitting in a boat somewhere. That's why looking at the horizon always helps to stabilize you. Digital motion sickness is the opposite. You see movement, like the turns and twists in the video, but you don't feel it. Oh, that's different. That's like if you're doing a virtual game. You don't feel it. The result is that same sensory conflict where your head is saying, wait a minute. Whatever. Our brains aren't wired. Now, I suppose a young person's brain, for your grandchild who will put on goggles like this in the next few years, it'll be perfectly cool to him. He's not going to have this problem. His brain's going to wire itself to handle this stuff. Don't you think?
Yeah.
It says it's the kind of air sickness, for instance, that seasoned airplane pilots can feel if they're in a flight simulator. So their bodies know what it is to actually be in flight, but when it's a simulation, their bodies are not getting the kind of physical input that they would if it was a real plane.
Right, and I think it's sort of tied to a loss of control. You know how if you're a passenger in a car on a road, you'll get sick, even if you're in the front seat, but if your hand's on the wheel, you won't.
Well, you know what else they say? I mean this piece is the more realistic whatever it is you're watching. So this has to do with video games, too. The more realistic what you are watching is, the likelier that you will get sick. Because the head can't process it. So this article was not about the little boxes. It's really about the fact that increasingly game players and others are putting these things on their heads
there's a
to
huge
play
thing
game.
There's like a helmet that you put on your head.
Yeah, exactly. And
which is why I thought the little box was so ingenious. It could do everything that helmet could do.
It's amazing. So anyway, they're actually worrying about this because this crap's coming. I mean, it's coming. The New York Times is, Senate. A lot of houses in this country have one of those little boxes sitting in the living room now, and it says the after effects. If let's say I sit on that put that box up against my head for maybe 15 minutes. The after effects can be strong and long-lasting. They have already done some studies that show that somebody who's been involved in this virtual reality stuff and then ends up back in the real world, they do have trouble focusing, tracking images, and hand-eye coordination suffers. Lengthy viewing, even of high-definition television, can alter a person's equilibrium, sense of balance, making them more prone to falls. I got to tell you, the thing, I had 2 people working in my house yesterday, and I had both of them. I'm running around. I was practically running out on the street and stopping people. Look at this! And this guy who looked into it was like, oh my God, and then he got sick. He said, I'm getting dizzy. I said, okay, well then stop. The woman didn't get dizzy, but she ended up looking at something where she was up. She lasted the longest. She was up in some high place. And she said, oh, no, I'm afraid of heights. And I'm thinking, my God, you just take that away from your eyes and you'll be standing in my living room again. It's that real. Susan, I think it's the neatest thing ever.
Well, it is neat. I gave mine to my son.
Okay, but you know what they said? They said if you get sick, that maybe the way to deal with that is to just do it until you start feeling the first queasiness and put it down. Get out. And then come back. And they're saying do it in short spurts until
train
you
your body, because I didn't get sick at all. And I, of all people, would be vomiting, but not me.
Yeah, well, so I'm just saying it was the neatest. So what do they call that thing?
It's a virtual reality something or other.
Unbelievable.
But I'm just saying it wasn't a free gift. It made everybody sick. There's a cost to everything.
Yeah, I got sick. Okay.
But you're right. There is no such thing as a free gift.
And there's no such thing as pre-planning. God damn it. More idiots in this world than ever before. People don't even know.
Or even planning in advance.
Yeah, right. Shit. Can't take it. If you're a literate human being in this world, you're constantly queasy or angry. Anyway, great big long piece in the same edition of the New York Times that I think gave us the boxes. Not sure, about men's liberation. Did you read it?
No.
Susan, you're falling down on your due diligence.
I'm sorry. I haven't done anything except I've been pressed into service.
All right. Okay. Just been with the little typhoid Mary. Okay.
Plus, my dog eats the New York Times.
He eats the New York Times?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
He really does tear up homework and stuff.
Well, they do. I mean, there is.
The New York Times magazine, even as we speak, is sitting in shreds on my living room floor.
Oh, not the crossword. Oh, you can get it online. Okay.
And he just turned the TV on.
He turned the TV on?
Yes.
Cool. I can hear it. Okay. Can I share some of this information with you?
Yes.
Well, the article is written by men and, in fact, senior fellows at the Brookings Institution. I usually thought it was Brookings Institute, but it's the institution, which...
It's probably where they belong. Okay.
All right. No, they're right on the money here.
Okay.
And they start by just dealing with, here's where we are now, guys. The jobs that many men used to do are gone. And they're going fast. And families, well, I'm not going to get into that part. So they say, as painful as it may be, men have to adapt to what a modern economy and modern family lives demand. And he says, while there's been some progress, it is not anywhere near enough. The old economy, along with the old model of masculinity, are obsolete. They're gone. The economy's gone.
I think that's true.
Yeah,
I think where, to expect that one man is going to be able to be the supporter and the family and do things the way they were done in the 50s
it's gone. Forget it.
Is unreasonable and unfair.
Okay, so they say women, obviously, in the last generations, have learned to become more like men, in that we've moved into what were masculine territories. And the authors say, and now, guys, men, you need to learn to become more like women. Men must either adapt or be left behind. And this is nothing new either. And then they go on to show how women, and this, if you think this doesn't fuel the rage of a lot of white men, and if you don't think this fuels what, the economist, the Nobel Prize guy, of undereducated whites, baby boomers, killing themselves or dying way before their time. It is the fact that they came of age during this wrenching transition. And a lot of guys, the reaction to it is not to do what will save them, which is to move into what are considered women's fields, as women have moved into men's, to stop this craziness about what is masculine and what is feminine.
Yeah, and nursing is a really good example of that.
Exactly right. So they show, though, the number of women moving into male-dominated professions like medicine and law and all that. And it's just this huge spike in the last 40 years. And then men moving into nursing or education, the female jobs, it's the slightest, teeniest little upticks. And they've got to go where the jobs are. And unfortunately, what a lot of guys are doing, and they say this, men, especially those with the bleakest economic prospects, are retreating. And they're retreating into what some now are labeling hyper-masculinity.
Right, they're buying guns and strutting around.
Right, and this leads to violence, misogyny, and it is a way for them to deal with what they find is loss of respect and a lowered status. And their response is rage. Rage at women, rage at blacks, rage at the world. And then they just go on to say the male problems starts with boys in the classroom. Girls have absolutely overtaken boys at every stage of education. Girls have higher grades from the early years through high school and college. Men are now a minority on college campuses, and only 42% make up only 42% of college graduates now. Girls demonstrate more focus, more self-discipline, and America, even while America's boardrooms and legislatures are still male-dominated, and even though women on average still make less money, but if you look at young people in their 20s, that wage gap is absolutely disappearing. And
it's disappearing, and
women are starting to make more.
I just look at my children's lives that are just sort of without thinking, a whole lot different than ours are, both in, most in division of household labor.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're saying that even though everybody says that men are doing more at home, they aren't doing anywhere near what they have to do. I mean, your son is not necessarily representative.
No, but it's gone are the days. Well, even when my husband did virtually nothing except work.
Right. You had a very traditional.
I had a traditional
single
marriage.
breadwinner.
He went to the office, and I did absolutely everything
else. That's right. That's right. But that ain't happening.
Which actually wasn't that, 1950-ish, because I handled, the taxes, the finances, so that was different.
Well, a lot of women.
I did everything else.
Okay.
But our dad and our mom, Mom just had this nice little life, and Dad did everything.
Well, that's not true.
Well, she cooked sometimes. She ran the house.
Yeah. That's the deal. The little lady runs the house, and the guy brings home the bacon.
Right.
Yeah. So they say the numbers show that women are now the primary breadwinners in, get this, 40% of all American households.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
40%. And that just is growing by leaps and bounds. And most of those women that make up that 40% are single parents.
Well, that might be true. I'm just saying, when I go to the grocery store now, I'm as apt to see a daddy with the baby in the cart as I am to see the mommy.
Not quite. But more and more. Because women are making more, in a lot of marriages, that number's in here somewhere, women make more than the husbands. And if that's the case, then, often the women will work and the man will choose to stay home. So they say...
No, it's not even that. They might both be employed, but
right.
One,
juggling.
Works from home or blah, 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 blah. Or that day, it's the daddy that's doing it. I'm just saying that there's so much more household stuff being done by the younger generation than might not be equal yet, but it sure is moving.
Well,
so I see some adapting. I see a lot of adapting.
Here's the problem: business. Employers.
Business is not adapting.
Employers are not adapting. The United States is I'm so sick of saying things like this. The United States is the only advanced country without a national paid leave policy. In fact,
that's the kind of exceptional we are.
Yeah, that's how exceptional. And
we're the exception to the rule that everybody else has.
We're so exceptional, we still call it maternity leave. And that's not what it is. It's family leave. And so, listen to this. Here's what they say has to happen. The way Americans make policy when it comes to this is it's built on the assumption that if there is a father in the picture, he is earning the living or paying child support. He's never considered a potential caretaker. And Sweden and Germany, for instance, have already...
And it's never considered that would be good for the child.
Yeah, exactly. Sweden,
and therefore good for the country, by the way.
Sweden and Germany have already successfully introduced this family leave policy, so much so that they have a use it or lose it that actually forces fathers out of work back home to use their family leave. And in Quebec, since 2006, parents, listen to this, since 2006, anyone living in Quebec have been offered a benefit of 70% income replacement for a year. The government will give you 70% of your salary. But a critical feature of this is that 5 weeks minimally of leave are reserved for the fathers. So they are forcing the fathers out of work and back to a home. And as a result, the proportion of fathers taking time off from work jumped from 21 to 75%.
How nice for them all.
How nice for them all.
That takes a lot of money.
Well, that's when people so we just bullshit about family being important. We do nothing to help families. And they say the thing about the family, the father-only thing provision was put in there specifically to help destigmatize men who stay at home. That's a government that's thinking.
Well, that's how, governments have always been, if they chose to be, been the forerunners of changing societal thought patterns about things, and you do it with money. So there's a lot of taxes or tax exceptions that are in place in order to create certain behaviors.
That's right. No.
That should be no surprise.
No.
Governments do that all the time.
That's right.
But you can do it to grow corporations or you can do it to grow families.
Well, all of our policies that have to do with families have nothing whatsoever to do with the reality of American families today. We're still, our lawmakers and all that are still, firstly, they're overwhelmingly men at the state level, and they are all, stuck in that idea of traditional marriage. They also go into the fact that men have got to figure out that what they've got to do is the idea that they've got to understand that it's gone. The idea of the traditional, the men it's gone. I mean, maybe certain couples will have that model, but that's not going to be the way most people do it. And they actually flat out say men need to get used to the idea of marrying up. And women need to get used to the idea of marrying down.
Oh, but that hasn't been what we were taught.
They're saying, a lot of women say, I don't want to marry a man who doesn't, work or doesn't make as much as I do because I won't respect him. Well, that's a woman who's walking around with this old, stupid, traditional thing in her head. And men who feel emasculated by a wife who makes more than them, well, they're in trouble too. But they say, and the problem is that so many men and women who are just disoriented by the total shakeup in these traditional gender roles are just deciding they won't marry at all. And you know what? The people who aren't marrying at all are the less educated. Marriage is becoming something that only wealthy and well-educated people do. The numbers show that too. Outdated ideas are doing some damage. Too many men and women are holding out for traditional marriage when the traditional conditions that supported that have largely disappeared.
That's true, but I think it's more complicated than that.
Well, I'm sure it is.
I'm just giving you snippets. This is the economic side of the thing. There's also the sexuality side of the thing, where if what you're looking for is the traditional monogamous relationship, that is much harder to find. From what I can tell, the younger generation is much more willing to say, I don't want to be monogamous, you can be my main squeeze, but there's going to be others, and find a partner that's just fine with that. And across all sexual, permutations within the relationship. So if what you're saying is from the outset when you're dating, by the way, I'm aiming towards a monogamous relationship on a path to marriage. Your choices are pretty slim.
Celine disagrees, and she's a young person.
Well, I'm just telling you what I hear through the grapevine.
Okay. About a third of adults in America still agree that, quote, it is much better for everyone involved if the man is the achiever outside the home and the woman takes care of the home and family. A third.
I think that's such total bullshit.
But that's a third. But it means 2/3 of Americans did not agree with that statement.
Right. It's just total bullshit. A happy family is comprised of a man that feels fulfilled and is focusing mostly on what they want to do, and a woman who is fulfilled and is focusing mostly on what she wants to do. And how that works on a spectrum is up to the individual in that relationship. It's actually one of the ways that the relationship grows, is admitting that because this is new to two people, that you might not know who you are or what you want. So that my husband married an attorney and expected to be married to a high-powered attorney. I decided that I should stay home and raise children.
Yep. And it worked okay.
It worked okay.
He didn't feel like there'd been a bait and switch.
No, he felt a little bit baited and switched.
He said, you mean I have to earn all the money? I thought you were going to earn.
Right, you betcha he thought that.
So,
I told him he'd be just fine and we'd be just fine, and we would just live on less, that I was unhappy hiring someone to be the mother to my children. Mm-hmm. And and there were plenty of women at the time that had total loss of respect for me. I remember being introduced to a partner in a major law firm by a, quote, friend, unquote, of mine as, this is Susan Nutzel. She used to be a high-powered New York attorney, and now she stays home with her kids.
And that was a negative?
Oh, yeah, that was just withering.
Well,
the
housewife.
newspaper did an article on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sort of stuff. It was just,
Well, that's people also trying to drum up this war between women.
Right.
It's either.
But I would argue
or.
the same way that it's just as bad for children to have a mother that needs and wants something other than just being the mother to her children, that craves to have her own separate life and career. That woman is much better doing that.
I would lose my mind, what's left of it, if I had to stay home with children.
That's right.
I would lose my mind.
That's right.
I don't know how women do it, because, for me, impossible. Impossible.
So what I'm suggesting is it's not the choice, it's having the wisdom to learn yourself to make the right one.
Yeah.
Or to be willing to change your mind if you decided you made the wrong one. And combined with the luck of having the economic ability to make the choice.
Yep. Well.
But that's for both parties. The woman's right to choose on these matters, it should be complemented by the man's right to choose on these matters.
But
equality, folks.
Yeah. The thing is that a lot of guys have to wake up, though. And government has to wake up. Policymakers have to wake up. The days that men with little education could be breadwinners and, have a traditional family, they're gone. Those jobs are gone. And men have to do what women transitioned, went into jobs that they were told they couldn't do. We went in and we showed we can do them. Men need to do the same. But the problem is men's jobs were highly valued. Women's work never is highly valued. So for a man to go into a female-dominated profession, like kindergarten teacher, childcare, nursing, that kind of thing, is to lose status if you still got that old picture in your head. of what, and so a lot of guys just can't do it. So
Well, the government, a lot of people don't encourage men going into these traditionally women's fields because then the pay might go up.
Yes, everywhere men go, the
and
pay
they can't
goes
afford
up.
it.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you that there is nothing more powerful than a male teacher in an elementary school.
I know, and I wish more and more guys would get in.
And so important. So important,
especially
for so
when
many
you
of
have
those children.
You have more single parents, female head of household, single parents like mine, like me, and I was so wanting my son to have, when he was in elementary school, to have male teachers, and they were scarce. But it was, in fact, a male teacher who had the biggest impact on him.
Yeah.
He was scared of him at first because he'd never seen such a strong male authority figure. He was scared to death of him. But, wow. That's the only teacher Sam ever went back to say, hi, how you doing?
Yep.
It was important.
Yep.
Mr. Bowman, God rest his soul. Yeah, important.
Yeah, I know. I have a brother-in-law that taught 5th grade for 30 years and was probably the major male influence in a lot of young
Yeah,
guys.
a surrogate dad, and what a great
Yep.
dad he is.
Yep.
Right. Well, Suze, I don't know. The world's changing. The world is changing so fast, and this is what I think. People are just disoriented. Like I was disoriented with those things on my... It's like a metaphor for what's going on in general in our lives. And so if you feel queasy, it's because the ground is shifting under our feet and has been for at a speed we just can't quite adjust to for decades now. I really think that's true. And so if you want to know why the world seems nuts, that's why. It's moving too fast for us. Wouldn't you agree, Susan?
Well, I would sort of. I would just. Yes, the world's moving fast. The world has always moved fast.
Not as fast as it is now. No.
Well,
it's ratcheted up tenfold. Are you kidding? Technology? I mean, Suze.
Yes, I know. Then we all have to. Here's the thing. Then everybody has to understand that it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from. Every single person has the same job in their life, and that's to move forward and create their own luck. And some people might have it easier than others, but we all are tasked with the same thing. And that's never changed. And, yeah, the guarantees for some people have changed, but too bad. That's it. The job is still the same. Move forward. So you stamp your foot and you move on. That doesn't work.
Adjust or die.
Adjust or die.
Adjust or be left behind. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta. But that's a daunting prospect for a lot of people. And people who are prone to anxiety, like our mom, who gets a free gift in the mail from the New York Times and ends up being frantic.
I had to wrench it out of her hand. I bet you she went and pulled it out.
I bet she did too, having heard it was possibly something she... Well, I'm hanging on to mine. And you know why I'm hanging on to mine? Because I think in 5 years, the sight of that thing will be... It'll be like funny to us. Look, this was the first, whatever. This was the first one, remember? The New York Times brought it. It was a cardboard thing, and it'll be like, a kid looking at a boombox.
Kaleidoscope.
Yeah,
Right.
or something. I mean, but it'll be such a quick change because that's what's happening. So I got to get my sea legs under me and learn how to do that because I got a feeling that's where we're going to have to be in virtual reality as well as reality and keeping your balance. God help us. All right. Well, Suze, that's it.
Yeah.
I hope that wasn't too depressing.
Well, I mean,
It is what it is.
What was our choice?
Paris? We'll always have Paris. What's that from?
Some old movie.
Well, that's correct. Casablanca.
Oh, okay. We'll always have Paris.
I don't know if Bogart said it to Bergman or Bergman said it to Bogart.
I think Bergman said it to Bogart.
We'll always have Paris. All right. Goodbye. Adieu.
Goodbye.
Adieu. Adieu. Adieu.
Adieu.
Adieu. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.